empty the chamber on them. And how do you do that? First 6 seconds, 20 feet, everything you got. Everything you got. Turn that shit up. Let's go. Welcome to Scoop World Order Bloody Tuesday edition. We are through the hard parts of practice of the week for both Ohio State and the Georgia Bulldogs. We have a light practice on Wednesday, a little sharpening up of what they're doing. Then Thursday is a nice light walkthrough. Are you guys ready? Because we are getting close. We're winding the time up. I hope none of our Scoop family are stranded right now. But if you guys are, be safe. I know that the travel has been crazy this Christmas, so thinking about you guys. But we appreciate you guys tuning in. We're going to have a great show tonight. We're excited about it. Get your questions fired up in the chat. We're going to get grinding here. So as always, the first thing we always do, we start every show off with saying how thankful and grateful we are for you guys. Thank you guys for tuning into our show, making it what it is. It is a blast to have you guys. We love having you guys on here. You guys make it better. Comment down below. How are you feeling about the game? Do you feel better, worse, more confident, less confident? And maybe compare it to some of the big games of the past where you might have had a little trepidation. The OSU Miami game, 14 Alabama game. Been a lot of talk about a lot of that, a lot of swirling about being an underdog, people counting you out. I think that this team, Vegas has them as the number 2 seed right now. So, I don't think they're as big underdog as some people might think. I think we have a better quarterback. I think we have better skill guys. I think our defense played the worst game ever against Michigan. I think they're going to be better this week. So, and they're rallying the troops. I mean, it's us against the world down there in Georgia. So it's going to be real exciting to see. So, as always, thank you guys for being in here. But I'm going to bring in my good friend Nevadabuck, and also click to subscribe to this. Click like if you can. That'd be huge for us. It's always big. We appreciate you guys. That being said, going to bring in my good friend Nevadabuck. Nevada, how are you tonight?
I'm doing great. It's fun. We are definitely in bowl season now. We got a little Wisconsin football going on as we speak, and getting closer to the big one, the Ohio State Georgia game. So lots going on. Definitely feels like we're in the midst of the college football bowl season. That's a great time of year.
Yeah, I love it. The 10 o'clock kickoff is like the greatest thing in the world because you're just like, oh, it's time to go. Oh no, there's Wisconsin's playing right now, and you can. There's always people that wanted to see how the team's doing scouting. Obviously, Luke Fickell's taking over. That'll be a very interesting challenge for him to get rolling. And again, in the chat and in the comments, shout out where you guys are from. I love when you guys do that. You guys love doing that too, so do that for me. But yeah, I feel like the more I study Georgia, the more I look at the statistics, like I feel better and better about Ohio State going into this game. I know nobody believes me. Everybody thinks I'm crazy, but I just... we've got a great throwing game, probably the best throwing game they've seen. I think we have 2 really good pass blocking tackles. Georgia has not got a lot of pressure on the quarterback. They have 26 sacks on the year. 3 of those are deleted because their stud defensive end, Nolan Smith, is out for the game. So that helps our situation. But, they still have the number 1 guy in Mel Kiper is a big board, 88 as their defensive tackle, who's real good. They have an All-American linebacker. I mean, it's going to be an incredible challenge, but I don't know if it's to the level of like O2 Miami where they had like a generational team or it feels like a 14 Bama type of game where Bama played Auburn, didn't play, they gave up, I want to say they gave up 600 yards of offense in 14 to Auburn. And then the whole time we're getting ready to play those guys, I was like, look, I know that it's Bama and everyone's scared of Bama, but they gave up 600 yards the last time they played, which is a lot for an Alabama defense back then. And, Georgia, the last time we saw them, they gave up 500 yards in the air. And I keep saying that, and I know people say, oh, it's garbage time and whatever, but LSU used their backup quarterback. I mean, they're using their starter got knocked out, backup comes in, shreds them, and CJ Stroud's better than either of those guys, and our receivers are better than LSU's receivers. So I don't know. I feel good about it. Nevada, if you're Ryan Day right now and you're sitting in your hotel suite in Atlanta, how are you feeling right now? Through Tuesday's practice as you creep towards Saturday's kickoff.
Well, I mean, you feel as good as you could possibly feel. I mean, Ohio State for the most part is as healthy as they've been in a long time. The practices have been exactly what you've wanted them to be. You feel like you've got a great game plan to go up against this Georgia team. You feel like your team's at a good frame of mind. Everybody's loose but focused. You have nothing to lose because everybody's picking against you. So it's kind of the reverse pressure of the Michigan game where everybody's picking you to win that one and expecting you to win big. This one, nobody's expecting you to win. So I think Ryan. I should say I know Ryan Day is feeling really good about where he's sitting right now, where this team's sitting right now, and I have said this before, but I'll say it with as much conviction I possibly can. I don't know if they're going to win the game, but Ohio State is going to acquit themselves very. They are going to represent in the game on the 31st. I'm telling you, they're going to play well. They've got a good game plan. They've got really good players. And this game is not going to be a blowout. This game is going to be a rock'em sock'em type of game, and it's going to be a one-score game. It's going to come down to the end. And Ohio State's got every bit as good a chance to win this game as Georgia does. I think they've got every bit as good of players, and I love where they're sitting. So as we sit right now, I'm certainly more confident than I was, a few weeks ago, and I feel like the bowl prep has gone as well as humanly possible for the Buckeyes, and I like where they're sitting.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that there's a lot on the line for a lot of these guys that potentially could be declaring early. Obviously, Paris Johnson is going to declare after the game. DeWant Jones. These guys got a lot on the line. They're going to be playing the best pass rushers, the skill guys. Going into next season. Obviously, Marvin Harrison is going to be the number one receiver returning next year. Emeka. This is the best secondary they've seen. Can they get off the press man coverage? Can they get off what Georgia likes to do? Because frankly, you don't see athletes like this across the Big Ten, like what Georgia has on defense. You CJ Stroud, I mean, he's got a lot on the line in this game. Obviously, projected to be a top 5 to 10 pick or so, but this is the tape everyone's going to study. So if I'm those guys, man, I'm locking in as hard as I can. I'm getting treatment. I'm taking care of my body. I'm watching as much film as possible. Just mentally going through the game as many times as I can because there's a lot on the line for a lot of these guys. I'm not saying, if CJ lays an egg, he's going to be, a second, third round pick, but it's like, this is a game people are going to study. And I've seen big games either make legends or make goats and not like greatest of all time, like literally like a billy goat, like on the side, eating a can on the side of the mountain type goat. So, there's a lot going on. I think that the one thing that I love just from the kind of the quiet, thunder that's going on inside that building, inside the team hotel is like, these guys got embarrassed at home. They've been dog whipped by our fan base, by the national media, by Michigan. It just, so that eventually, if you have pride, it turns into a bit of a volcano that explodes. And, these guys get another shot at it. They get a shot to win, to go win it. And you got to remember Georgia last year, they got embarrassed in the SEC title game by Bama, big bad Bama. Daddy came home, whooped them. Same old Georgia. And then, Georgia got a chance to get redemption, to win the first playoff game against Michigan, and then go play Bama in the national championship. And they got it done the second time. So, again, I'm not saying that that's a complete parallel, but I just, I like what I'm hearing. I like the underdog angle. I like that it's in Atlanta because, these guys are going to be fired up. They're going to start fast. They're not going to be scared. The whole stadium's going to be booing them. So it's, they know where they stand. When you walk around, like when I was in New Orleans and we're going to play LSU, we knew where we stood. There wasn't anybody rooting for us in that entire town. So it just, and we started fast. We started 10-0. Obviously, we didn't finish it, didn't play as well as we needed to. But this Ohio State team is much more talented than our 07 team. And I just think that, with our quarterback and our throwing game, I think that, and plus, we've had a month to get, Chip Trayanum and Dallin Hayden acclimated as the starting running backs. I think that everything I'm hearing on Miyan, and I don't like going on injuries, but I would say he's extremely questionable, and I don't know what we're going to get out of him. And Nevada, if you have any other updates, you could bring that along. But I think it's going to be the Chip and Dallin. So the Chip and Dip show is going to be running in the backfield next to CJ, and we're going to need those guys. I think no matter how formidable Georgia is, I think to protect the offensive line, you have to run the ball. Again, like when we played Florida, one of the things I regretted is we didn't keep running the ball. Like I wasn't calling the plays, obviously, but when we played LSU, we ran the ball. And that we started off the game running the ball, and everyone's like, you can't run against Dorsey and Ali Highsmith and Tyson Jackson. Those are top 5 picks, and we ran all over them. So I don't know. I think sometimes when you've got a 380-pound right tackle and you got Paris Johnson, you got Luke Whippler, like you can move these guys. They're not King Kong. They're not, they're just guys, and I think they're good players, but if you get your hands on them and you come off the rock, I think you can move these guys. Nevada, what do you think to all I just said, in terms of the running back rotation, in terms of, the team, how you're feeling. What's your response to what I believe at this point?
Well, yeah, I think I'm much more bullish on Mayan's health than you are. I think the obviously the next 3-4 days are gonna tell a big tale. But I think he came back after the Christmas break, had his best day of practice. Was had the black jersey off, was looking good. So I mean, I think the only question is, is he gonna does he get nicked up on Thursday or Friday? How does everything kind of hold up? But I'm much more optimistic about Miyan. But we'll know more. But I think, I mean, to me, Miyan, Chip, Dallin, I I think I look at them as almost interchangeable. I really do. I think they all bring different things, and Chip's a little bigger, and Downs a little bit more. He's kind of a slasher and a little bit more dependable. Kind of gets you up and down, and Miyan obviously is Miyan. But I didn't really feel like the running back position, or the lack of production for the running back position is really what killed us. You just can't have somebody back there who's hobbled. So I don't care who it is who's playing, as long as they're 100% and going. Because I thought Miyan going at 60% or 70% like he did in the Michigan game really cost us. And there were some big runs that were potentially set up that he didn't capitalize on. And I just hope that Alford and Day and the staff, whoever the running backs are, I'm indifferent. Just make sure they're healthy. Send them out there. Let's roll it up, and let's see what we got.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that we don't really have a guy who's a superstar. I think our superstar, had surgery in Trey. I don't think he's been right all year because he's been hobbled with that foot. But you got to remember, going into 2014, the Big Ten championship, Ezekiel Elliott didn't even make All Big Ten. In 2014. So he had that magical run where he got off huge against Wisconsin, and then he had the big runs against Bama. And then obviously, the Oregon game was the coup de grace for Ezekiel. That kind of, was his springboard into being a preseason All-American the next season. But, Zeke, who I thought was a fantastic player as a sophomore in 14, is a guy that just wasn't, he wasn't, he didn't get the accolades. There were some really good backs in the Big Ten or that year. And he down the stretch, he became kind of our secretariat, became our horse. And Dallin Hayden has a chance to do that. I think Chip has a chance to do that. Chip's had a whole month of practice now at running back, being one of the feature guys. The biggest thing I worry about with Miyan, other than being dinged up, is just conditioning. Because when you're dinged up with a lower body injury, you can't run as much as you'd like to. You can't condition. You can't lift. You're really just kind of I don't know. It's tough. Like, I mean, when I hurt my knee in '05, like I had to do a lot of Stairmaster and a lot of stuff to keep my wind up to be ready to play in a game. And running backs rotate, so he'd probably get 20-ish snaps, 25 snaps out of the 70 or so we'd get on offense. But it's gonna be fascinating to see how they manage him and the other guys, and do they stick with a guy? If a guy starts getting hot and feeling it, like, do they make a guy into a horse? Because it's not always a bad thing when you got a guy that can really pour the ball. And I think you got to have a guy that's got the speed and the burst and the elusiveness to get past these guys and go get the yardage, protect the ball. Because like with Ezekiel, when we played Bama, I've watched that film multiple times. We didn't really block Bama that great. I know people think that we just bullwhipped them and 250 yards rushing versus Bama 40, but like we really didn't block him that well. But I mean, we had some good breaks. We found creases. Cardell ran for over 40 yards, which was huge, and a lot of that was third and medium, third and long, where he converted and broke their backs. And I think that's something. I know I've said it 8 million times. I get tired of saying it with CJ, but dude, you gotta, every yard is golden against Georgia. You can't let any, if there's a bunch of green grass in front of you, go take it. Go make it 3rd and 3 instead of 3rd and 9, because that's a huge difference for Ryan Day, for the offense, for the morale of the team. Go get a first down. Go. I'm not saying run a guy over, because I know he's never going to do that, but it's like, go run through somebody and go get that first down. Go extend the ball. You see it every week in the NFL. And I think that in a game like this, man, you can't hold back. You can't. I'm not gonna take hits, or I'm gonna protect myself for my future or whatever. Like, go win a national title. Screw it. I mean, you'll be fine no matter what happens to Nevada defensively. Obviously, big challenge with the 2 big tight ends. Offensively, they're kind of a 3-headed monster in the backfield. Their tight ends, their leading receivers, so that's kind of like Iowa. I mean, obviously they're much more talented than Iowa. Big offensive line, right tackle is questionable for Georgia. But what do you think Jim Knowles has cooked up scheme wise as we head into this matchup with Georgia?
Well, what they've been practicing and what we've been talking a little bit about is utilizing Josh Proctor in kind of a Sam role and using a little bit of Sonny Styles. Sonny Styles is a little bit bigger, a little guy that can cover and also stay on the line, can cover the guy that can cover the tight end out of the backfield, cover the tight end, from the traditional spot. Um, you know, will we see that in the games? Sonny's been running a lot with the twos and situationally with the ones, but will they dial that up in the game against Georgia? I don't know. The rotations this year have been a little bit baffling, but I think Knowles certainly. You can say a lot of things about Jim Knowles, but he's not a dumb guy. I mean, this guy is a very cerebral guy. Listened, saw some things. Obviously was embarrassed. You took ownership of those mistakes against the Michigan game, and I think they've got a solid game plan cooked up for Georgia. And I think that they've got a game plan to deal with those two tight ends. I think we've got the personnel to deal with those two tight ends, and if they can kind of take that stuff away and put the game into Stetson's hands and make him beat us, and maybe he is capable of doing that. But that's how I want to play him, and I think that's what Jim Knowles is going to do, and I think they're going to put a lot of pressure on the quarterback and see if they can cause some turnovers, some mistakes, some game changing plays, as it were. And if I had my money on those two guys, like I said, it would be Sonny Styles, Josh Proctor, two relatively unheralded guys throughout the season that come up, make some big plays, and lead the OSU defense to a fantastic effort in the 31st.
Yeah, I agree. I think Josh Proctor is kind of made for this game. This is going to be a physical game. This is going to be a downhill game. They are, you look at sets and best numbers. I mean, they're surprisingly similar to CJ Stroud in terms of his volume of passing yards, but he doesn't have the top two guys like CJ does with Marvin and Emeka. I mean, there's a huge chasm from a production standpoint, just in how much we throw the ball to those two. He targets his tight end much more than we target ours. But it'll be a very interesting matchup. I think that Jim Knowles is a prideful guy. I think he's been very angry since getting whipped by Michigan. I mean, that was a tough gig. We had so many small things happen in that game. I thought our safety play was as bad as I've seen in 10 years, which, those guys are good players. I mean, Ronnie Hickman's a really good player. Lathan Ransom is on the verge of being an All-American-ish type player, and they both played their worst games of the year. So I think those guys are going to be very motivated. Those guys, I think, both want to go pro after this game. So there's a lot of juice back there. I think that going against these safeties, or these tight ends going against these safeties, is going to be a premier matchup. This will be the most attended game in terms of the scouting circles in the NFL. GMs, scouts are, teams are sending just tons of scouts, head coaches, GMs. I mean, this is going to be a big one. This is going to be one of those ones where you're just like, oh my God, I can't believe how much talent is on this field, really at every position. Offensive line, you got a star quarterback, you got good running backs, great receivers. And this is the tape that everyone's going to watch. So I think these guys are going to be highly motivated. Nevada, what's on the line for Ryan Day in this game? I mean, obviously, 2 Michigan losses in a row. We thankfully won that bowl game last year, kind of by the skin of our teeth. What is on the line for Ryan Day and his future at Ohio State with this game?
Well, that's one of those it's a tricky question to answer because you kind of ask yourself, okay, let's go to the worst case scenario and say we lost 50-0 in the game. Would Ryan Day be fired on Monday? No. So from that standpoint, nothing's on the line because there's really no outcome that's going to go on that's going to cause him to be terminated or cause Ohio State to kind of move on from him and make some sort of snap decision in that regard. Now having said that, it's kind of like it's everything is on the line. Everything. It's about everything about his system, about his culture, about the way he develops his program, about everything he kind of stands for and believes in. That's really kind of on the line in this game. So it's kind of a everything and nothing type of proposition for Ryan. But I think Ryan likes it that way. I think Ryan, as much as I think he much prefers the underdog role. I think, obviously most coaches would, but I think Ryan is really relishing that. I think he's really kind of enjoying the uh, the lack of pressure that's kind of coming from being in this spot. And so for Ryan, I think we're going to see the best of Ryan Day. We're going to see the best game by Ohio State. Open question of whether or not that's going to be good enough to win. I think it is certainly good enough to win. But I think they'll put their best effort of the year. I think they'll play their most complete game, and I think Ryan will make his most coherent um, game plan. And we all know when we're watching a Ryan Day game plan, when they're in sync and when they're doing what he wants to do, and we're also familiar when he's kind of just making it up as he goes and he's starting to panic. I think this he'll have a very very interesting game plan. I think it will involve tempo. I think Ohio State's going to go fast, and I think they're going to go deep. And I think between those two things, I think that's going to loosen up that Georgia defense, and we're going to be able to do some interesting things with them. And I think it's going to be one of Ryan Day's finest moments. So I frankly, I can't wait for it.
Yeah, I would, if I was Ryan Day, I would walk through going tempo to start the game. I mean, just, the crowd's going to be loud. Georgia likes to get really, really, really exotic. I detailed it last night with TJ, at the beginning of games, especially when they've had a layoff. They showed a 2-down look. They showed bear. The first game, the first drive against Alabama in the championship last year, again, they start off first snaps bear, then they line up in bear and shift out of bear, and then they run a 2-down look where the tackles at end switch places, kind of walking around. And it's like the only way you could really do that is if you go slow, go to the line, look back, go to the line. It's like, but if you just get up to hike the ball, first sound, eliminate the ability of the crowd to have any effect on a false start, kind of wear them out a little bit, wear out Will Muschamp a little bit, because Will Muschamp is about as aggressive as a coordinator as there's ever been. So he's going to bring the house on it, especially early. Try to carry the momentum up. Try to set the tone on CJ. Hit CJ early. Put him on the ground early. And I think that tempo is a great way to combat that. I think that it could wear out Georgia. I think Georgia's going to be. I don't want to say they'll be exhausted starting the game, but when it's a home crowd, all these people are there to see you. All these Bulldog fans are there to see you. It almost like you have to catch your breath after the first few plays because there's just so much adrenaline. I mean, I've done it before, and when you're in that home stadium, which is essentially what the Benz Dome is going to be for these guys, it is, it's a double-edged sword. It's fun to have the fans behind you, but when you're on the road, I just feel like it's so much better to concentrate because you always have to concentrate. You always have to be snap count. It's going to be loud. Go on the silent count. Go on, just lock it a little bit tighter than you do when you're on the road, and I don't think that gets talked about enough. And I think that that's something where it could benefit Ohio State. I think that we've got a good O-line. These guys have been veteran. I think Matt Jones is going to be ready to roll, which is huge. And again, if we don't help him versus 88, then shame on us, because I think 88's a fantastic player. He's number one on Mel Kiper's big board. But I don't know. If I'm Ryan Day, I think that I like this role. I would much rather have, again, I never, ever, ever, ever would want to ever lose to Michigan. But, when you take that loss and you still make it in the playoffs, you realize that you're not invincible. You realize that there's a lot of stuff you need to get better at. There's a lot of stuff. And the glory of this is you actually get a second chance to actually try and do that. Where when I lost, a national championship game, we didn't get to come back the next week and get it, or in 2 weeks and get a chance to right the wrongs. And, oh man, we weren't invincible. We weren't good enough. So I think that when you take that loss at the end of the season, the coaches can grind these kids pretty hard. They can be hard on these kids, because again, the ultimate glory is winning a national championship. That's what every football player that plays college football wants to do. And these guys have a chance to do it. And I'm telling you, this Georgia team, they're very good. I think they're deserving number one overall, but they're not anywhere near as good as they were last year. So Nevada, do you feel roughly the same way? I mean, they had 15 guys drafted off last year's team. I watched that defense, and I literally think that's the best defense that's ever played in college football after watching the talent and how many of those guys got drafted and how good they were. But do you agree with that assessment from last year to this year with Georgia?
Yeah, no, I think there's a lot of things you said I agree with. I think I want to circle back on one point though you made about second chances. I mean, Ryan Day's made a big deal, and actually, with Coach Cooper about delivering the message about the '98 team. I mean, the '98 team was about as good a football team as you'll ever see at Ohio State, and they had one screw up, one bad game cost them, and they never got a chance to win that national championship. They never got that second chance, and I think that Ryan Day's really pounded that home with these guys about how what a glorious opportunity this is for these teams, that you have this chance that none of these other great Ohio State teams ever had a chance to do, which is you get a do-over. You get to line it up and get to do it over, and not only you get to do it over and kind of erase all the bad, you get to make it better than it ever was before. I mean, a comeback and a win over Georgia and then a defeat of Michigan in the national championship game, like I said, would be the greatest story in Ohio State history. And these guys have a chance to be part of that. And I think it's a wonderful piece of psychology that Ryan's used on these guys. I think for Georgia, no matter what, college football, it's hard. It is hard as heck to repeat because guys get complacent, especially with the money that's in NIL and the NFL and the distractions that come along with it. It's hard as heck to repeat. And I'm not sure if this is a great Georgia team. I felt all year long that college football was kind of wide open because there was no big juggernaut team out there. And after studying Georgia this entire bowl season, I feel that way even stronger than ever. So I think that combination of Georgia being really really good, but not maybe to that next level of just scary elite, and Ohio State playing loose and feeling that they've got a second chance to do it over. I think it's going to bode very well for the Buckeyes on the 31st.
Yeah, I mean, when you just look at their statistics, and again, I'm not a huge stat guy. There's a lot of reasons for a lot of things, but on the year they have 26 sacks total. We're in the mid 30s at Ohio State, and we felt like that was disappointing. Jim Knowles' defense at Oklahoma State last year had 57 sacks. So, that was one of the things where I thought we'd see a big uptick in production, and for whatever reason, we didn't. I don't know if it was, it's hard to say it's the talent of the pass rushers when you have JT Tuimoloau and Jack Sawyer, Zach Harrison, Mike Hall, Tyleek. I mean, you get some guys that can really get after it, and for whatever reason, they didn't get there as often as you expect. But, Georgia's got 26 sacks on the year, and their leading sack guy, 88, who's their best player, Jalen Carter, has 3 sacks as the team leader. So, again, a few years ago when we had Chase Young, he had 15 sacks, by himself. So, again, I think that they could go out and have 7 sacks against us. I don't know, but they're blockable. They're a lot more blockable than they were last year. Nolan Smith, their best defensive end by far, is probably a first-round pick. He is not playing. He is out. He's been out for months, except for the season-ending injury. So I don't know. And again, I'm not trying to doubt how good Georgia is, how good Kirby Smart is, how good Will Muschamp is. But you look at some of these numbers, and you just don't see. Last year they had George Pickens, who's been fantastic for the Steelers this year. James Cook, Dalvin Cook's little brother, who's with the Bills. They had some really dynamic guys on offense. And this year, the whole offense got to run through Brock Bowers. And if I'm Jim Knowles, I'm putting Josh Proctor in there and saying, go hit him like you hit the guy at the end of the Wisconsin game that one year. Go T-bone him a few times to start the game. Just let him know you're here. Jam him. Again, Josh, not a great cover guy, fantastic hitter. So I think that the plan with him is just rough him up, make it tough on him. Obviously, they've got Washington, the supersized tight end, who is usually their point guy in the 2 tight end looks. But I think that when you have a month, you can basically put in a whole new offense. You could put in a whole new, not a whole new defense, but a lot of wrinkles into defense. Because basically, what people don't understand is when you have bowl practice at the Woody Hayes for the month of December, it's basically like a new training camp because you get 15 practices, which if that's 3 a week, I mean, that's enough time to install an entire offense, an entire defense, a whole new plan, and really change up a lot of the things. You get to study yourself profusely. You get to see your tendencies. You get to change those tendencies because Georgia's going to study you. They're going to have analytics. They're going to say, this is what, if Marvin Harrison's in the slot, these are the concepts they like. If Emeka's in the slot, these are the routes they like. If it's Emeka, again, we got this tip that was like a big point of contention for those guys is whoever's in the slot and whoever's at the Z receiver next to him If they go 3-by-1 or 2-by-2, if those two guys are on the same side, these are the concepts they like. So you can switch all that up as you're um, prepping in bowl practice because you have enough time to install stuff and change things up and mess with your tendencies. So I think Ryan's good with that stuff. I think Brian Hartline's good with that stuff. So it'll be real interesting to see what we do defensively if we are as exotic and as aggressive as we were versus Michigan. Because again, people love aggressive, exotic blitzes and all that. They love them until they don't work. And because when they don't work, it is, it's a 75-yard touchdown. But, as Nevada likes to say, and I agree with, I'd rather die on my shield and go out, fighting and swinging as hard as I can than giving up 6 and 7-yard plays every time and giving up the same amount of yardage. Nevada, you agree with that. Like, I like the aggressive game plan. I think you got to play to win. Is there anything you would tweak, obviously, other than giving up the long plays, from Jim Knowles' approach versus Michigan as opposed to Georgia?
Well, no, I think like I said, I went back and looked at every one of those plays, and defensively, the only thing that I wouldn't have Cam out there in the field. It's a personnel thing. I would not have played him. I certainly wouldn't have played him in that spot. But the other four big plays, I really don't have any problem with them. And I know that sounds kind of sacrilegious, but that's what I feel like. I feel like they were guys were in position to make plays and just didn't make plays. So it's going to be a huge challenge for Jim. This is big boy football. I don't know if he's ever been in a game quite like this one before, but this is it's going to be fun. I can't wait to see the influence of Brian Hartline on the offense. I know that Brian has been working on taking those route concepts, extending them out a little bit more, pushing the ball down a little bit, kind of pressing that overhang defender to be able to have to make a choice between run and pass instead of letting them kind of sit there and play both sides like that. So I'm interested in seeing that. I think that's kind of an not unspoken, but a less spoken of story is the Heartline influence on the offense in this bowl game, and will it result in a more dynamic and interesting passing attack? And if bowl prep is any indication, I think it will. And as we've talked about, Georgia got absolutely roasted by LSU through the air, big lead and everything. But to your point, it was the backup quarterback doing that. And the backup quarterback's nowhere near C.J. Stroud, and with the receivers nowhere near what we have. So I think we can move this ball through the air, but at the same time, when you do that, that opens up things to the ground, and that's where Ryan's got to strike that right balance. He can't just become Chuck it Charlie and start throwing the ball over the lot. He's got to keep them guessing. I think tempo is a great way to do that, and we've all seen what Ryan can do when he gets in rhythm. And I just have a feeling this could be a 2020 Clemson type of offensive performance, and we'll see. Much bigger challenge defensively with Georgia, but when Ryan gets in a groove, he can really make some things happen. And I think he's going to find his groove, and the results from an offensive standpoint could be very interesting.
Got a good question here, Nevada. Kirk in Nevada, appreciate this YX. Do you think Ryan Day gambles or uses some trick plays in a game like this, or plays more conservative? Will the staff start off throwing it deep or running Stroud? I think you got to go for broke in this one. I don't think there's anything left to hold back. I think that, going conservative and getting into a fist fight with Georgia, I think it's a bad move. I think trying to throw it over their head after they just gave up 500 yards in the last game they played in is the move, especially when it's a backup quarterback doing that. And, people can say it was garbage time, but 500 yards is 500 yards. That's a lot of passing yards. So, Nevada, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think Ryan plays more conservative, or do you think he opens it up more, trick plays? My God, we had that fake punt versus Michigan. We probably saw it saved. I'm sure we've got something schemed up to go against Georgia. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I think he'll definitely let it hang out. I think the biggest thing is I think they're going to use all four downs. And I think that changes a lot of things for you as a play caller when you're looking to use all four downs to gain 10 yards. I think they'll be more aggressive than they've been all year. And, what I like about taking deep shots is the hidden yards. And the hidden yards are those pass interference penalties, because those don't show up on the stat sheet on the passing yardage or the receiving yardage, but it's yards. And if you throw it up there and you have a receiver that's even, mildly successful, but coming back to the ball, trying to fight through the defender, you'll draw the flag. So I think that that's really going to be a part of the game plan. I fully expect it to be part of the game plan, and I think it'll be a successful part of the game plan. So I can't wait to see that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the deep shots killed us against Michigan. I think that those DPIs were just backbreakers in the end zone. Don't turn back at the ball. Hit the receiver. 15-yard automatic first down. Those are backbreakers. I mean, that's from a guy. We played LSU. We had 5 personal fouls, automatic first down, 15-yard penalties. That it just kills the team. And I think that's part of the benefit to throw the ball now is that there are a lot of penalties. They do call a lot of infractions, whether it be, legal touching, whether it be a DPI, or whether it be defensive holding. Those are all automatic first downs. So that's a benefit to throwing the ball as much as we do, as good as our receivers are. DBs have to hold them to hang with them. And if it gets called, it's a free first down. It's free yardage. Nevada, who do you pick to be the leading rusher for Ohio State on Saturday?
Yeah, if I had to pick, I'm going to say it's going to be Chip. I think Chip's going to have a big game for Ohio State, but you could convince me to go to Dallin because I love Dallin. I love what he brings. But I just think Chip's going to have a big game. I've loved him at running back. I've seen him play many games at running back out here on the West Coast, and I like what he brings. And as you mentioned, him having 30 more days, he's way more comfortable in that running back spot. And the fact that they brought him out there for the press availability today kind of that's always kind of a tell in terms of where you're sitting on kind of the depth chart and how they're feeling about you. So if I had to put money on, I'd put it on Chip.
That is very astute, and I can tell you from sitting in the meetings where they go to the sports information director, like when we had Steve Snap, who was a fantastic SID, the best in Ohio State history by far. There's a reason why they put a guy like him out there next to Marvin Harrison. He's going to start. I'm sure he's going to play well. I think he's jazzed up after not being used basically all year when they converted him to linebacker to be back running the ball. I think his physicality is a huge asset. I think that we need to stick with the run. I think that a lot of teams, when they see a front like Georgia's, they get scared. They don't want to run the ball. They don't try to run the ball. How are we ever going to block those guys? And I just think that that's how you run on teams. Is they don't expect it. They expect you to just chuck it and do your thing. And I think CJ, if he wants to help us, he's gonna have to pull some of these read options we run because those are really hard to defend. I've seen it every week in the NFL. Get out on the edge. Cardale against Alabama had some of the greatest scrambles we've ever seen. Some of the most backbreaking scrambles we've ever seen. Craig Krenzel versus Miami when you needed it the most, when we were underdogs, when it was hard and yards were hard to come by and points were hard to come by. He took it upon himself to run, and he took some vicious shots. But if he doesn't run, then I don't know if we win that game. And I think that's kind of how one of these games are. Like, every yard is golden. If there's green grass in front of you, you could go make it 3rd and 2 instead of 3rd and 9 or 3rd and 10. That is gargantuan. I can't even tell you how gargantuan that is because it opens the whole playbook up. Ryan Day can say, hey, we got 2 downs to get 2 yards, so we can call whatever we want, as opposed to 2 downs to get 9 yards. So I think CJ is going to be the key. If CJ plays the best game of his career, we win. If not, we don't. I think it's going to be all on him. I think he has to run for over 30 yards, which I know that sounds like an astronomically high number, but things are going to break down. I've studied these guys. They run some crazy stuff, some exotic stuff's going to be loud. There's going to be blows in the protection from our interior guys because they're going to bring guys from everywhere. And sometimes, even if you've walked through it a million times in real time, if they hide it, if we're not an empty and we have a big box with 2 tight ends in there, they can really disguise stuff. And there's going to be blows, and that's where CJ just has to run away from guys and go make a play and go get some yardage. Nevada, who is maybe a dark horse guy that could have an impact in this game that you've heard about over the last month in the WAC at some of these bowl practices?
Well, I mean, I'm going to go dark horse, and say Josh Fryer. I think Josh Fryer is a guy that had come in earlier in the season, played some right tackle for us, and done a really credible job filling in for Dewan. I think there could be some heavy sets that they do with him, some heavy sets where they bring in that extra tight end, put that 41 jersey on him, or some overload sets where they bring him in and just kind of overload one side. But I think Josh Fryer could be a guy to watch out for as You don't really talk about offensive linemen being key guys, but he's a guy that can help kind of block some of those big guys up in the Georgia front, and I think he's had a tremendous bowl prep, and I think they'll reward him and give him some playing time.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Mike Hall. I think Mike Hall's a guy that can get upfield, penetrate, pressure Stetson Bennett. I think that he looked really good in practice. Guys that were there, I've been told he looked fantastic, healthy. His first two steps are quicker than any of the defensive tackles by a mile. And I think this is the kind of game where you got to get upfield and disrupt. You got to get upfield. You got to affect Stetson Bennett. Obviously, he's been there before. He's won a national title before, but you know you gotta get after these guys. You gotta push them back, and I think that's something that hasn't been up to snuff in terms of what we like to do on defense. Is we don't push enough guys back in the run game. Defensively, we don't move the line of scrimmage backwards with our inside guys, and I think that Tyleek and Mike are the best guys. Don't let Tyleek put him at three, put it Mike at nose, let him come off the rock, come up field. There are two best pass rushers inside. I think they're going to play more this game. I think partially because they're due to play more. I think partially because, I mean, those kids could, I don't even want to say that they could hit the portal out loud, but I mean, those guys are playing 10 snaps a game, 15 snaps a game. And Mike Hall led the team in sacks. He had 4.5 sacks and he was playing 15 snaps a game. So, yeah, I know he was dinged up, but now's the time to let it rip, man. The world's watching. You're playing the O line that was voted the number 2 O line in the country behind Michigan in the Joe Moore Award standing. So it's a real O line. The right tackle's a little hobbled, a little banged up, but I just think that you got to get that inside pressure on Stetson. You got to get the inside pressure on the running game, and I think that's going to be so critical. Um, Nevada, as we crank toward this, how are you feeling? Has your prediction wavered at all? Do you feel better after you've heard some of what's going on in practice? The last hard practice, the last padded practice is in the books. Tuesday is done. Wednesday they'll be in uppers, just shoulder pads, and then Thursday they'll just be in jerseys or pillow pads, shell pads. How are you feeling? About 96 hours out of the game right now.
No, I'm feeling great. I'm feeling great. I think Ohio State. I was really concerned about the psyche of the program. Obviously, after the Michigan game, you're just never sure where things are going to be. But things have broken exactly the way that you'd want them to. They've really kind of embraced this role, and they've been sharp, man. And we've all seen bowl practices and bowl prep and playoff prep, and sometimes you're sharp and sometimes you're not. Sometimes there's just like one distraction after another, or problems or issues or whatever it might be. And this has not been one. This has been pretty smooth sailing. I mean, even things like transportation, where guys are late, or there's even issues with going on with weather or other things. Like, we haven't had any of those issues. We've had no nonsense. Everything's been smooth, and that's usually a pretty good sign going into the bowl game. So I'm definitely feeling better 96 hours out than I've been, and hopefully I'm feeling better 48 hours out than I am now.
Yeah, well, I totally agree with you. I feel better and better. I'm excited for this last practice report to come in tomorrow. Again, it's at the Benz Dome, so it's always it's going to be good to hear kind of how these guys wrap everything up. I think that guys are excited, and it's a huge opportunity. You're coming off a loss, which again, as weird as it is for me to say that, I kind of like that. I kind of like that because, again, it's a lot harder to coach a team when they're undefeated and they're kind of feeling themselves, as opposed to when they got dog whipped by Michigan at home. It's real easy to coach those guys then, because it's going to be a miserable existence. If you're Ryan Day and in that coaching staff, it's going to be a living hell inside the Woody Hayes every day, because that's unacceptable how it happened. And these guys have a real opportunity, man. They could win the big ring still after losing to Michigan. So, I can't wait. The time is going to run quick. Hopefully these Bucks are getting some rest, relaxing. For those of you guys traveling to the game, please travel safe. I know it's been a mess getting down to Atlanta because of travel. Any final thoughts, Nevada, as we wrap this thing up for the night? Appreciate you guys tuning in.
Couple one, don't fly Southwest Airlines, because they're obviously not doing. That's one. Secondly, the running back Allen for Wisconsin, that everybody's just kind of all over his jock, like he's like the greatest running back of all time. Boy, I'll take all of our guys right there with he's nothing special. So I'm telling you, like, watching it run, I'm like, this guy's like, just he's super ordinary. But anyway, just had to say
10,
that. And
10 for 47 so far in the game. You guys,
I mean,
we're filming this during the game for, I mean, obviously you guys are on here live, but go ahead.
no, but yeah, just people like, oh, I wish we had him. I'll take him over everybody. It's like, oh my God, this guy's so ordinary. It's like, please give me a break. And
Yeah.
other than that, no, just I hope everybody has a great one. I hope those people that are going down to Georgia have a great time and bring home a victory. I'm not going, but my son is going, and he's planning on bringing home an Ohio State victory. I don't think he's ever seen Ohio State lose, so he's like the super mega good luck charm for the Buckeyes, and I look forward to seeing everybody on the message boards. And thanks for all your terrific support.
All right, brother. Appreciate that. We're going to wrap this thing up. Thank you guys so much for tuning in tonight. This was a blast as always. We love recording these and talking to you guys. Great questions as always. This is going to be, this is the countdown is here. It is moving quick. It is crazy. We appreciate you guys so much. Thank you guys so much to subscribe to BuckeyeScoop.com. If you have not subscribed to BuckeyeScoop.com, you guys need to give it a try. I'm telling you, our crew on there is unbelievable. Great inside information. I have Bill Greene on tomorrow. We're going to run through his thoughts on the game. Big Bank Chat coming on Thursday. Game thread on Saturday. Can't miss it. Can't beat it. Join BuckeyeScoop.com. It is the Rolls Royce of Ohio State premium communities, and we have a great following. We have some really big time people, board of trustees. There's some mega dudes on our site, so you guys would really enjoy it if you have not subscribed, and we'd love to have you. So appreciate you guys as always. Thank you for the questions. If you could hit that like button on the way out, that would be fantastic. If you could subscribe, also fantastic. Spread the word on the podcast. We are growing these things. So obviously we appreciate you guys and all of your help in doing that. If you guys are listening to this on iTunes or Spotify, if you could leave us a 5-star review, that would be great. It really helps people find our podcast. Our podcasts are growing like crazy. All thanks to you guys. We appreciate you guys so much. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. As always, we appreciate you. Thank you so much, Buckeye Nation, and thank you, Scoop family. It's almost time to beat the Bulldogs. And if you want the latest, log on to BuckeyeScoop.com. Take care, my friends. You guys have a great rest of your day. Go Bucks.